Our home. Made a plan. Made a plan. I forget. I can't do this. I'll get it up. Our home and Egypt.
Body break.
So until next time, keep fit and have fun. Let's go, Hal.
Body break.
So, it has been a little while since I have been able to update you on the ReadEHthon. I know the ReadEHthon ended August 9th and it is now August 24th. So, of course, halfway through the ReadEHthon, my husband and I and my kids, we decided to go on a little bit of a family trip to go visit my mom and my brother. So things like I expected got really busy and I was not able to do much vlogging or sit down and chat for my channel here, but we had a really good time with family, so that was really nice, and I am now finally able to sit down and kind of do a little bit of a wrap up. I just finished the skin we're in like this morning at 2 a.m. I started this during the ReadEHthon, but I knew I wouldn't be able to finish it because it's a pretty dense, heavy topic and there's a lot to take in this book, and I had read a lot of nonfiction for the ReadEHthon. So I also picked up another book that I'll talk about in another vlog and just do like a review of that one. It was also a Canadian book, but again, I read it past the ReadEHthon, but I just needed something, just a fiction story to kind of break up all the heavy reading done in these books. I don't have all the books with me because I took a lot of them out from the library, but I hit a lot of prompts, which was really good, and I think I was watching Kayla on Books and Lala for the Reading Rush, which I did not participate in this year, but she was talking about picking books with quality content, not just quantity. I feel like with reading rushes, it's like, or with ReadEHthons, it's like a marathon. You want to get as much done as you can, and you pick like 20 books and hope you can get through like all these books in a week. And we're just trying to read a lot during that one week. But we have to balance, I feel like, quality and quantity as well. And that's why I picked up some heavier books like this one, even knowing I wouldn't necessarily be able to finish it within the 1 week. So I started the ReadEHthon with a couple of children's books. One was When I Was 8, which was an Indigenous children's book. And that one was really interesting. She did not know how to speak English, so this girl wanted to... I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. I think they changed her Indigenous name to Marie, I believe. I'll put a picture of the cover anyways, but I read that with my daughter and we had a little bit of a conversation about the importance of being able to go to school, how privileged she is to be able to just go to school and not have to do chores at the school, things like that. And that like when this girl got to the school, they cut her long hair and they took away her clothing and all this stuff. But even through all the trauma that she faced in school, she was still able to learn how to read, and she was like so proud of herself. So I think it had a good message of just being strong and persevering, and even through all the negativity and the trials that she went through, she was still able to accomplish her goal of being able to read. And I think that's so important, and hopefully that with my kids being in school, maybe we can look for ways to help others who are not as fortunate as we are here, where we live here in Canada. We also picked up another children's book to read, Summer North Coming, by Dorothy Bentley and illustrated by Jessica Bartram. I have this book because I know Dorothy, and she was at our local Kohl's bookstore in the mall, and so she signed it for me and the kids, and I wanted to support her and her work because one day I hope to write a parenting novel. She's actually helping me with that a little bit, so I got it signed here. So this was really nice because not only is it Canadian, but it's also like a local author as well. And this one covered the prompt of nature on the cover. So the other book, When I Was 8, was Indigenous. I don't know if it follows under anti-racism literature or not, but it was Indigenous and children's book. This one's a children's book and has nature on the cover. So this one was really fun, and it was about this lyrical full-color picture poetry book celebrates the magic of summer and winter in Canada's north. So it was kind of interesting because it is a poetry book. Summer North Coming, it's kind of like a weird grammar, and my daughter's like, what does the title even mean? So maybe Dorothy can help us out with that, but it exposed my 8-year-old to poetry anyways. But it was really nice. It was a really good book, and the art is just beautiful. The artwork is so beautiful in this book as well. And you can see that in my day 2 vlog, I believe. The other book I read is also another Indigenous author. It fit the prompt for an Indigenous read as well as a non-novel book, as it was a graphic novel. It was very, very tiny. The Pemmican Wars, A Girl Called Echo, Volume 1. And it was really interesting. I don't typically read graphic novels, but it was good to like kind of push the boundaries and pick up something different. And there wasn't a lot of writing. The story was told mostly through the pictures, which was really nice, and then there was just enough writing to kind of tell you the story. There's a girl named Echo, and I'm not sure how old she is, maybe like 16, and she's in, it looks like a foster care kind of situation in like a group home or something. She's away from her mom, and I'm not sure about her dad or anything like that, but she goes to school, and it's a mostly white school, and from what I gathered through the pictures and the story, but she's in like a history class, and they're learning about, I think, Métis, but they're learning about Indigenous history within Canada and the Pemmican Wars. When she's sitting in class, it's like she's transported to that time of the Pemmican Wars, and you see her visualizing herself there, and she meets this other girl probably around her age, and she's like, where am I? What am I doing? And she's like, these are my people. We are nomads, kind of like the nomadic lifestyle. We travel around. That's why we don't have like permanent structures or anything like that. We have like these tents and stuff. And she explains like what pemmican is, which is like berries and meat mixed together. And it was a source, like a high source of protein and food that would help them through the winter because it's so cold and harsh winters. And they would sell it to like the white settlers to help them survive through the winter and stuff like that. And then this war kind of started, and how the settlers were trying to take away rights of the indigenous people and saying like they couldn't sell pemmican, or they couldn't do this, or they couldn't do that, or whatever. And so this is just volume 1, and like I said, it was very, very, very tiny. So definitely have to pick up others to follow along in the story, which was really interesting. But I liked seeing like she was transported there, and then at the end of class, the bell would ring, whatever, everyone would get up and leave, and you could just see like she was crying and she was upset, and the teacher's like, I know this is really hard, but this is your history. It's so important to learn, and stuff like that. And then you'd see her go back home to like this group home. One of the ladies in the group home is like, hi Echo, how was school? And she's like, okay, and then just goes up to the attic to her room. And then she's like, don't forget you have a visit with your mom today and stuff. And then you kind of see her and her mom just sitting there like barely talking, and she's like, I'm learning about our people in the war. And her mom's just like, oh, like, okay, like her mom had no interest in this stuff. But it was really interesting, and definitely I'm glad I picked it up. I don't know if I'm going to follow with more of it right now, but I'll definitely look into it since it is such an easy read. So I picked up that one. Then my first novel I picked up was Alan Doyle, Where I Belong, Small Town to Great Big Sea, and this takes place in Petty Harbor in Newfoundland. And I wasn't sure how I would feel about this book because I don't listen to a lot of Great Big Sea. I've never been to Newfoundland. I didn't even know Alan Doyle was the front man for Great Big Sea or anything like that, but at least I'd heard of Great Big Sea. This was really fun. It was such a good like biography, memoir. It was very descriptive. Like I could picture myself there in Petty Harbor, Newfoundland. I learned how to cut cod tongues out of fish, and not how to make bread though. His mom's recipe was kind of funny that way, but it was just really like I could picture myself in the town. I laughed about, he talks about the difference between the Protestant side of town versus the Catholic side of town, and how they were like basically segregated from one another. And I always just laugh about these crazy religious divides that like don't make any sense, but they go so like far back that no one even questions it anymore. But he had a little Petty Harbor, Newfoundland map in the book. And then he talked about like, this is the Protestant fish plant here. And then this was the Catholic side. This was the non-Catholic side. This is the Protestant church. His grandparents' house, they lived on like Skinner Hill and stuff, so they were on the Catholic side, I guess. So there's like the Catholic fish plant, like there was the Protestant convenience store and the Catholic convenience store and stuff like that. And I could just really picture being in that town. And I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars just because near the like third part of the book, he's talking more about getting into Great Big Sea and some of the technicalities of playing the guitar and stuff like that. And it wasn't something like I personally could relate with, but thankfully that wasn't like it. Most of the book didn't take place, like most of the book wasn't about the technicality of playing in a band or anything like that. So it really is something anybody can read, even if you don't really know Great Big Sea, but you want to learn more about Canada and Newfoundland. This is a great one to pick up, and it was really fun, and I'm glad I got to it. And then I picked up on our drive. I don't normally read in the car because it makes me feel nauseous, but I was actually able to read some of this as the kids were listening to a movie, and my husband was listening to some more instrumental music, so there wasn't any like lyrics or talking or anything to distract me. So I picked up We Have Always Been Here, a queer Muslim memoir by, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Samra Habib. And this was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed this one. It covers prompts for immigrant story as they immigrated from Pakistan. And she is a Muslim growing up in Pakistan, and how they immigrated to Canada, to Toronto. And it also covers the LGBTQIA+ prompt. And I liked it as well because this wasn't a prompt, but I am a Christian and she was a Muslim, so I got like a different perspective from their religion. And she also talks about like talking about Where I Belong. He talks about like the divide between the Catholics and the Protestants. And in here, there's 2 different like sects from the Muslim faith, and they practiced one sect of it, and so they were persecuted by the other Muslims. And it's so sad when as religious people, we can't even, like, as Christians, we fight with other Christians because they don't believe exactly what we believe. We don't share the exact same faith or whatever, like the same. There's fundamental things in Christianity that in order to be a Christian, you kind of need to believe in. Like, Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus died for our sins. He was raised on the third day. You believe God created everything. Like, very, very basic things. But then there's so many other doctrines and things that people can interpret in a million different ways. Every single person has their own interpretation and blah, blah, blah. But we fight so much about those little tiny things instead of just putting our energies into something more important. And it's interesting to see that this happens in other religions as well, like with the Muslims. But sadly, in like Pakistan and stuff, you're persecuted. Here we just like fight and bicker with each other, but I'm not worried for my life because I believe in baptism submersion versus being sprinkled. Or I don't believe that you should be baptized as a baby, but as somebody mature enough to know why they're being baptized or whatever. Like, I'm not going to be killed or persecuted or attacked because I believe slightly differently than you do. But in like Pakistan, that does happen. And so this was really good. And I liked, it also has red on the cover, which was another prompt. I liked that, like, it's a queer story, but she doesn't grow up thinking like, I am queer, I am a lesbian, I like women. She doesn't grow up thinking those things. She's just living her life and fearing for her life and for her father's life. Like, every time she said her father left the house, like, she was so scared. When was he gonna come home? Like, she didn't know. And it wasn't until she was in Toronto and escaped. There's actually an arranged marriage in here, and she's quite young when she's married off to her cousin. She's like 16, and she doesn't, like, she questions being married off, but she's not questioning like her sexuality at this point. And then, I don't want to like spoil, it's a true story, like, how do you put in, like, it's not really spoilers, but the arranged marriage doesn't work out. Like, she gets out of it and she gets married again, basically for convenience and a way to get out of her home and away from her parents and just to live her own life. But it's not until like after that marriage that she starts to learn about her own sexuality and stuff like that. So I liked that it was kind of like, it wasn't a coming out story so much as it was her discovering herself, just discovering her own sexuality and her own journey and stuff like that. And then her getting together with other queer Muslims and how they practice their faith and how faith is so important to her. Like, I know that in Christianity, typically homosexuality, queer, LGBTQI is kind of like looked down upon. It's seen as not right, things like that. But there are LGBTQIA plus people who do have faith. And some of them are Christians and they believe they are born again. They believe in Jesus, all of that stuff. They're not just like spiritual and they just believe in a spiritual whatever. I don't know, just that there's something else out there or in a spiritual realm or whatever. No, they believe in Jesus and God and in Christianity. But like, where do they find a safe place to go where they're not going to be ridiculed for their choices in their love life? I imagine it's quite the same. Being gay is not like a safe thing to be in the Muslim faith, but having faith and having that connection to Allah for her was so important. And she was searching for a safe place to be able to connect with Allah, but also be who she, authentically be herself. So I really liked that she didn't just like dump her religion and her God and her faith because of her sexual orientation. She's like, no, I still believe in Allah and I'm still me. I just, like, I don't fit into this specific mold. So I really liked that she found a way to still practice her religion and meet with other people who lived a life similar to hers in the LGBTQ community and still practice their Muslim faith. So I really, really enjoyed this book, and this one was definitely a 5 out of 5 stars for me. And last but not least, I picked up The Skin We're In, A Year of Black Resistance Empowered by Desmond Cole. This was a really hard book to read. It was very dense. It was very, just a lot of information to take in. It was very depressing because I was like, I love you, Canada. I love being Canadian. I'm proud to be Canadian, but you kind of are terrible. And he talks about that, like how Canada looks at the States and all that's happening in the States with racism and Black Lives Matter and all these Black men dying at the hands of cops, being murdered. And in Canada, we're like, well, we're not like that. We're not that bad. That doesn't happen here. And he's like, no, it does happen here. And he talks about deportation laws here and systemic racism and police profiling and things like that. So it's like, damn, we need to do so much better. But it's good to know, like, we can't just put our heads in the sand and be like, well, I'm Canadian, we're better, haha. No, it is happening here. I thought it was going to be just about like his specific personal encounters of racism, but he does talk about like things that are happening within Toronto and within Canada and around the world that are happening. Like it starts out January 2017 and then it goes like February, March, April, and he's following different cases of people, like they're trying to stop deportation of these children from Somalia who come in with their parents, or in this specific case came in with their aunt because their mom had passed away before they got refuge in Canada. And then the kids got taken away from the aunt and now they're like wards of the state basically, and the government is their guardians and they never get citizenship because the only ones that can legally give them citizenship is the government, whoever needs to apply for it on their behalf, and they never do. And then he's like 21 years old and he gets in trouble and he's in jail, and it's like as soon as you're out of jail you're being deported, that's it. And he has no way to fight for himself because the government failed him as a 7-year-old kid who came into Canada. Like, you can say what you want about a 21-year-old making decisions. It's really easy to judge and be like, well, he kind of chose to go to jail by the decisions he made. But as a 7-year-old, he didn't make the decisions to come to Canada. He didn't make the decisions to be taken away from his aunt. He didn't make the decisions not to become a citizen. This was a really powerful read, and I'm really glad I read it. And it was hard, and it took me a long time, and it's not a book that you can just sit and, like, you're flipping through the pages, like, what's going to happen next, right? Like, you're really, like, sitting with these stories kind of thing. So I found it really eye-opening, definitely, and I'm glad I picked it up. And like I said, I was reading another fiction novel, kind of historical, kind of romance, but historical time travel type thing that I'll talk about in another vlog. But I was reading that while also reading this just to kind of like break it up a little bit, but I really, really enjoyed this. 2 books I took out from the library that I was not able to get to during the ReadEHthon or my travels was The Forgiveness, A Gift from My Grandparents, which is a Japanese story, and then Why Young Men, Rage, Race, and the Crisis of Identity. So this is another one I want to pick up, and I still have not picked up. Like, these are Canadian reads, but the other one is American, and it's White Fragility. I still haven't read that one. But I feel like this one's going to be a hard book, like The Skin We're In, and White Fragility is going to be, it might be a little bit easier to read because it's more like a white person's perspective and how we kind of deal with race. And I just finished listening to the live show discussion that Books with Shay did. Be But Bookish, L'Amour de Books, and what's her name? I follow her, and now I'm drawing a blank. Bookish Realm. I found Books with Shay because of the Blackout ReadEHthon. And I found Bookish Realm just, I don't know, she's fairly popular. And I really like her, and I really like her stuff as well. And I need to look more into the other ones. I have a list on YouTube. My watch later list is like 75 plus long all the time. So they did the Blackout ReadEHthon, Books by Shay was hosting that, and they did White Fragility and White Rage. And I just watched the 2-hour and 20-minute long live show discussion about it, and it was so good. They talked about so many things, and it was really good. So I really want to read White Fragility. I think that will resonate more with me as a white person, but still talking about race. So, but it might be a little bit easier for me to digest. But I feel like this book is going to be a really hard, kind of dense book that my brain is like, has a hard time comprehending. But I'm hoping to get to this and White Fragility soon. This is a library book, so I want to pick this one up first. White Fragility I own. So, and then Forgiveness, I think is more just going to be like his story. So it might be a little bit easier. It's not going to be like so much about laws and stuff like that. I had a really good reading week, the ReadEHthon. I really enjoyed what I read and everything like that. This takes place in Toronto. This is a place I've visited. This also is Toronto, which I have, again, visited. My mom is from Toronto. And then this is Newfoundland. This is a place I've not been to. Oh, there were 2 audiobooks I had. Late Nights on Air, which takes place in the Northwest Territories, I want to say. I DNF'd it. It was an audiobook. It was 10 hours long, and the narrator was so boring, and it was really hard to keep up with what was going on, and it just felt like nothing was going on. So I DNF'd that, and then I was also trying to listen to Johnny Appleseed, which was Indigenous and queer. It was only like a 5-hour audiobook, so I'm like, perfect. We have like 18 hours of driving to do. I'll listen to this book. And it had red on the cover, a buffalo, and it was red. And it started like the very first sentence was like, I was 8 when I discovered I was gay. And I'm like, okay, we're just jumping right into this. And then like right after that, he talked about like jerking off to these like images on cable after his parents or his kokum, his grandma, went to bed, and like being really quiet and all this stuff. And then it just really got really graphic, more graphic than I wanted. I wanted a story. I DNF'd it, like, I don't even think I was an hour in. I loved his voice. He had a really good, like, voice to listen to, but it was just really more explicit than I wanted. I wanted to hear what it would be like to be queer and living on the res, and how you kind of, like, navigate those 2 different worlds. But I think he does like webcam stuff, and people like live webcam, but they're like, can you dress up like this or dress up like that? And he does like these sexual acts and stuff. And he was just talking about all that stuff. It was just way more graphic than what I was looking for. Not what I wanted at this time. Anyway, so I DNF'd those, sadly, but I had some really good reading, and I'm looking forward to reading even more books in the next couple weeks here. Thank you to all the hosts. I'll list them somewhere because there were so many hosts. Like, I haven't even started watching other people's ReadEHthon vlogs yet, but I'll be doing that soon. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you to all the hosts. Kayla, who started ReadEHthon, who came up with it, and all the hosts that you have this year. It was so much fun, and I'm so glad I could participate. And I will see you next time. Bye!